Welcome, Cancer, to your in-depth weekly astrology overview and zodiac forecast for week commencing the 27th of April for the ascendant, the sun, or the moon. Going to share the big themes of the week ahead first. Cancer, then on screen, your event chart on Monday always provides an influential backdrop. I'm then going to go through each of those influences frame by frame to give you a clear picture of what you can expect by the end of the video in terms of your energy, work, relationships, and finances. I'm astrologer Patrick Arundel. A very warm welcome. If you've yet to subscribe to my channel, please do so now to help it to continue to thrive. At the very start of this week, Cancer, such as the cluster of energy still right in the most prominent part of your chart, what you do for your living or how you connect to the wider world is very much in the mix. But there could be some conflicts within you about what to do because some of those players have very contrasting energies. But also, as last week came to a close, we did have Uranus, the planet of freedom, move into a much more psychological part of your chart, joining up with Venus. But I say psychological, it can also be an area very much to do with healing. And that brings an element of intrigue into the week too. But equally, over last weekend, the Sun and Pluto clashed in a right angle, one of astrology's most challenging influences. They're separating as you come into this week, but you're going to still feel their power. What's it about? Now, later in the week, on the 1st of May, we have a full moon, a flower moon in the water sign of Scorpio, where the moon is in its full. It's not its best location. But for you, it's brilliant to remind you of your individual talents and flair. But it's asking you to think whether your future plan is actually embracing all of those as well as it could. And then finally, as the week draws to a close, Mercury, the planet of communication, moves from an ambitious sector into a much friendlier, social, and more network orientated position. So on the screen now is your event chart. Let's just take Uranus and Venus together first. It's possible in that combination, if a relationship has really been bumping along the bottom, the fact the sun is in the part of your chart to do with your future, but also your higher values, and Pluto is in a much heavier, potentially powerful energy around stuff like control, leverage. If someone's a bit jealous or not really uh, bought in to what you want from your future or your values just don't align, I think this combination here can make you think carefully about perhaps uh, going through the door marked exit. But equally, this combination in any kind of relationship can be a reminder to all of us that we have to work at it, but also we have to at times reinvigorate them. And that means being a bit more spontaneous, which Uranus loves. Venus definitely loves that. But Venus is actually in a beautiful link with Neptune right at the top of your chart. There may be someone that you're admiring that you've yet to actually have a conversation with. In fact, their presence could be mesmerizing you in some way. And also, as the week goes on, Venus links powerfully to Pluto. So if it is someone you eventually have a chat to, even though the conversation may be on the face of it light and breezy, I feel that you could be soaking up all the power of it, but in a very magnetic way, in a way which really makes your pulse race. But what about your professional situation? With this cluster of energy, Neptune is the most dominant player because it's nearest to the 10th house cusp. And that's reminding you that you're a water sign. So being in touch with how you feel, your intuition, your soul purpose is very, very important because Saturn being in the 10th house, although not at its best in Aries, is very much in keeping with keeping very much in keeping with maintaining the status quo or working in a big organization or some kind of structure. Whereas Mars is more about your need for individual acclaim and Mercury more about mental stimulation. So they all have quite different characteristics. And I think it's important that If you're not enjoying what you do to earn a living, Pluto in the eighth house, and the sun in Taurus is seeing your mind tick over about how you can earn money in another way, but doing something you find more inspirational, that really wouldn't be a surprise at the present time. But that brings us to Venus again. Venus moving forwards comes into a sextile with Saturn. If there is someone that you feel can be influential as far as your career is concerned, a quiet conversation, taking soundings, just catching up with someone you used to know, or just checking in with an email could actually be a smart thing to do. But that brings us to that full moon on Friday, the 1st of May. So the moon has moved forwards from its starting position in the practical Virgo, and it's in for you the fifth house. Now, the moon in the fifth house can be very joyful, affectionate, and warm, and it's very much given you a nudge to make sure that your individual emotional happiness is being manifested by your long-term plan. Now, if it isn't, and particularly around a love relationship, the politics that came up over the weekend could resurface towards the end of this week because Pluto is pretty broadly in a T square with the moon and the sun. And once more, it could be because someone's quite jealous of you or controlling. Uh, and if you're starting to feel that you can almost not breathe, that desire to withdraw and give yourself space that can come from Uranus and Venus in that 12th house could really be amped up. But another thing to tell you at the start of the week is that Mercury, in that very prominent 10th house, continues its right angle with Jupiter in your sign. So if there is something you are really excited about, your enthusiasm for it can be infectious, but it is important to do the research and not get too caught up in it. Now, by the end of the week, on Sunday, Mercury moves into your 11th house. But that's a great position for Mercury to be in. It's going to help you to think more coolly and detached in a more detached way about what you want from your future, but also who can be part of your future. Because I think that what's going to happen with Uranus in that 12th house, you may find yourself wanting to separate from any situation which doesn't really work. But Uranus can be quite a disruptive influence, and that part of you that can dislike outright conflict may be one of the things you can do to step away from a situation. But Uranus can be very up and down. So even if you choose to do that, someone may still seek out to discuss, and that could feel a little uncomfortable. Now, I'm going to summarize those four areas of energy, work, relationships and finances next. But just to say, I've slashed the price of my personal horoscopes. You can now get three for the price of one. You order your life roadmap report, which helps you to understand the patterns that are played out in your life so far, but get a more intimate understanding of what they are and how to work with them. But the free charts is your 12 months transit forecast, but also your draconic soul karmic analysis. Please see below for more. Why? Because I know people are feeling the pinch, but also because natal astrology can provide so much insight into our life journey. And I want to share my enthusiasm for astrology with you. Now, if you've yet to watch your May deep dive monthly forecast. That's now out. That's on the screen. Your Uranus 1 year into Gemini forecast on the screen. If you'd like to work with me personally, it'd be a pleasure. Please see my testimonials below. And if you've yet to sign up for your free daily written horoscope fired to your device each morning for your early day celestial pit stop, please see that below too. So when it comes to your professional situation, Cancer, I don't think it's in any one direction completely. I think there is a big part of what these planets are asking you to think about is whether you feel you're expressing your soul purpose. And if you're not, the next question is, by sticking with what you know, perhaps because of the financial context, is it actually started to steal you of energy and purpose? And all of that's going to really come to the fore on the back of the full moon of Friday. You could find yourself taking a much greater interest in any kind of healing, the psychological domain, and in quite a surprising way, in your love life, if it hasn't been working, I think Uranus and Venus being in your 12th house could give you an impulse to separate, at least have some space to yourself. But when it comes to your neat energy, I think Uranus can be a very electric vibe, but if there's part of our psychology with Uranus in the 12th house, we're not really embracing. So part of our shadow side, we're not sure of. So for example, if you feel a bit on the edge, but you can't quite pinpoint why, it likely will be Uranus. So that's going to be important over the next 7 years to try to take into account some of the sudden insights and flashes of inspiration that Uranus will give you about your attitudes, who you are, and how other people see you. It's been a real pleasure being with you, Cancer. Have a great week, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.